I've always been pretty open about my past, um, at least when it comes up in conversation and is relevant to mention. Because you don't usually drop a bomb like I was raped um, on people just out of the blue. So I think pretty much the majority of my friends know, most, if not all, of my family knows. It's something that I've talked about frequently over the years because it makes me feel better to talk about it. And I've already sort of written out like sort of a timeline on my website, mandora.com, mandorra.com. But I figured I'd do a video and just sort of talk about it a little bit. So it's kind of funny that, like, I started this website only a little over a month ago, and I started it on what turned out to be the 20th anniversary of the first time my stepfather raped me. I didn't know it was the anniversary of that date until like right before midnight. I had started working on the project that day, and I was working on my first post, and I went to go find this image I had scanned of a journal entry I wrote the night I was first raped that said nightmare about died. And then I looked at the date and realized it was 20 years to the date, and I was just like, whoa. I mean, I'm not really the type of person that believes in, signs and sort of things like that, but it's always kind of neat when that happens. Anyway, so 20 years ago, I was 13 years old, and my stepfather came home drunk one night and raped me. This is a picture of me from about that time frame. I'm pretty sure this is about 13. So, I mean, I was a kid. My stepfather continued to rape me for maybe a little over 2 years. So from the age of 13 to 15, sometime around between 14 and 15, my mother and my stepfather separated, and I thought everything would end. My mom moved into a different house in the same town, but things didn't end. They separated, but I assume my stepfather had a key to the house at one point, and when he gave that key back or whatever, he would bully me into either leaving one of the doors unlocked, or I would lock the door because I did start getting a little more bold about, trying to, keep him away from me. I would lock the door and he would, break in. I think maybe once or twice he wasn't able to get in. I don't know. I remember one night, my room in the second house was actually in the basement, but it was like a house built into a hill. And so there was a door on the front of the basement. And I remember one night I knew he had planned to come over, but like I think there was like a normal lock on the door and a padlock or whatever, and like I had left them locked intentionally. And I remember sort of basically like curled up in my room, like listening to see whether he was going to be able to get in or not, and being afraid. So much happened in those 2.5 years. I have so many stories, and I want to tell them. It makes me feel better to talk about what happened to me. It makes me feel empowered, sort of like, I'm telling my story, I'm sharing it with people. I like to help raise awareness by sharing my story, talking about things, because so many people want to pretend that crap like this doesn't happen or doesn't happen as often as it does, because people don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe that it happens. But you know what? It freaking happens. And, forewarned is forearmed or some crap like that. And you never know. You never know who it could be. Um, I was actually molested by two different cousins at different points in my childhood before this ever happened. And when I was in the 5th and 6th grade, I had a group of friends. I think there were 6 of us. Out of the 6 of us, 5 of us had been raped or molested, mostly by people from our families. One was by a dentist. Um, you know, I think one was like a brother's friend. Just you never know. Um, and it happens all the freaking time. And you know what the solution is to raise your kids and your sons especially to respect women and not be freaking perverts or whatever. It's just ridiculous the rape culture that we live in these days. Trying to, all the victim blaming is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's so ridiculous, in fact. I mean, like, I get mad at myself because I'll look at pictures of what I looked like during the time I was raped or whatever, and now I look at my picture. I did not feel self-conscious about anything then. I was just a young girl, following fashion and the trends and stuff, or whatever. But now I look at my pictures or whatever, and I question, the things I was wearing, and also just the fact that, like, I looked really good as a teenager, and I feel bad. I feel guilty about that now, and I shouldn't, and I know I shouldn't. But that's what rape culture and all the victim blaming, all that crap is done or whatever. It makes us feel like we're somehow responsible for men not being able to control themselves. It's just total bullshit. Anyways, I don't want this video to be too long, so I was just going to do a little overview of what happened to me. So, I was first raped at the age of 13, which was 1996. Stepfather came home drunk and raped me, and it went on for 2.5 years. And then I finally reached a breaking point, and I told a friend who talked me into telling an adult, and told my aunt, and my aunt told my mom. And a few days later, and thankfully everyone believed me. Like, I did not expect the support that I got, and I feel so fortunate that I did get that support because I know people that have not. But everyone believed me. It went so much better than I thought it would go, and we basically immediately sought legal action. I was encouraged to, I went to a police station a day or two after my mom found out, filed a police report, and started what would be a very long legal process. I was in and out of counselors' offices, law offices, and the courtroom over and over again for several years because my ex-stepfather's lawyer managed to keep getting our case postponed. And if I recall correctly, because I was young and I didn't quite understand everything we were doing, at one point I ended up going before a grand jury and testifying in front of them. And I guess they approved something, and we were able to basically, like, force a court date to happen. So in 2000, I think it was fall of 2000, yeah, because it was fall of my senior year of high school, we finally go to court. Now, during all of this time leading up to court, my ex-stepfather is stalking us, harassing us. My mother's tires keep getting slit. He has one of his cronies set fire to our house. Thankfully, it was put out. Rumors are spread. My friends are harassed. I am living in just absolute freaking terror. I'll do a whole video on all of the terror that I lived through. It's not like we just reported this and then we're just playing this waiting game. No, stuff was happening every single week. And a lot of times, pretty much every day. Just all kinds of drama or whatever. So this really disrupted my life. In fall of 2000, we go to court. We take Dan, my ex-stepfather, to court. We try and get him on 2 counts. the first count we're trying to get him on is for the first night that it happened, and the second count is for a night when he had taken me to the comedy club to see Pauly Shore, and which was like an hour and a half away, and 10 minutes away from home on our way back, he had pulled off in the woods, and some police officers drove up. He told them that, I just needed to pee, but, they remembered it because it was only we were only 10 to 15 minutes away from the house. He pulled off far in the woods. I was wearing like a special dress. They remembered that we'd gone to see Pauly Shore. So, we had witnesses for that second account, second count. Anyways, I had a fantastic lawyer named Lamar Williams who just, he's still my hero because he was amazing. We did not win the first count because apparently I was in shock, go figure, and I had the date off by one freaking day, just one day, and and I'm actually still confused because it happened late at night, and so what day do I I think it was a Friday night, but technically it was Saturday morning. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We lost that one, but we won the second count. And wow, I wish I had video of all of the bullshit that went on in the courtroom. I mean, we were in court. I know we were in court for 4 days. We may have been in court for 5 days. It was a long, drawn-out thing, and, Dan tried to bring in, 5 million witnesses or whatever, and including a classmate that he had bribed to say stuff, but we got her stuff thrown out because of details. But there was just... it's like watching some sort of crazy, maybe not reality show, but court drama or something. Anyways, he was found guilty of the second count, and he was sentenced to either, I don't remember if it was 5 or 7 years in jail. Either way, it wasn't long enough. But I was just extremely grateful that he was found guilty. It meant a lot to me that people believed me, that people, saw through his crap. So he's sentenced to 5 to 7 years. 2 days later, my boyfriend's apartment is broken into. Nothing is stolen. Everything is trashed. All of the pictures of us that were on the wall were ripped in half. And someone wrote, "I know who you are," on the bathroom mirror. Now, it's just my guess, but I feel pretty certain that that was my ex-stepfather, or one of his minions. My ex-stepfather did not have to turn himself in right away. He was allowed to appeal, and he didn't have to go to jail or anything while he was doing that. So I think a year or so passed, and during this time, we're still being harassed. At that point in time, my mother had moved to a new town, and we had made sure that our phone number was under a fake name. We basically tried to hide, all of our personal information. I cut off contact with the majority of my friends from Aniana, which is the town that all of this happened in, because I didn't know who Dan was harassing or trying to get information from. It just would have been too easy for him to have found out, where we had moved and phone numbers and stuff like that. And that made me really depressed. I was really depressed when we moved towns, and I basically cut off contact with people. I lost a ton of weight and got down to a sickly size. But anyways, harassment continued, and finally, in 2002, so 2 more years later, Dan gets a hold of our phone number. He obviously didn't know where we lived because when he called, he asked me if my mom was still living in Anniston. I think he asked me how I was or whatever. And I just sort of froze on the phone. I may have said a few words, but my mom was standing right across from me. And, she probably saw me go pale and lock up and all of that stuff or whatever. And I sort of mouthed to her, that it was Dan. And she took the phone and, he hung up. Anyways, my lawyer called me the next day or 2 days later and told me that Dan had been ordered to turn himself in, but he hadn't shown. Instead, he skipped the country. In 2004, and let me just say that, so another 2 years passed, and during these 2 years, I'm still having to deal with bullshit. A lot of false paperwork and stuff kept getting filed that I'd have to go, testify that I didn't, one example is they had someone basically, do a fake statement from me in Florida, where I supposedly said that it was all a lie, my mom had put me up to it, blah, 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 blah. They didn't even get my name right on this form. But I had to go back to Aniana. I had to do a video testimony at an office, stating that, I didn't write this or approve this and it wasn't by me. I mean, just all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And, sorry, I keep yawning. Anyways, so 2 years later, in 2004, Dan is arrested in Colombia, South America, and extradited to the United States, where the FBI collects him. And this made the news at the time. I think I might have a recording of it somewhere. But anyways, so he finally is put in jail in 2004. Okay, so he's put in jail, but that's not the end of it, because he still has minions to harass me. And the big thing that happens is he hires a private investigator to track me down. And at this point in time, my husband and I are living in a rental house. We're both working and going to college. And this private investigator starts calling me up. And, instead of just hanging up, I don't know, I had all kinds of anxiety and depression and stuff, and I was raised, not to hang up on people and crap like that, just was raised just to be way too nice or whatever. So I would listen to some of the shit that he'd say, and then basically, do my best to get off the phone as politely but as quickly as possible, because I don't know, from what I recall, this guy called me up, basically asking how I was and how my family was, and, talking about how it's good to have friends, and he wanted to be my friend, and all that kind of crap. And eventually, I think this went on for about 2 months. Now, after the first phone call, I immediately contacted the police, and I think they connected me with the district attorney or something like that in our area, who had me record my phone calls so that they could try and track this guy down. And eventually, 2 months, maybe a little less than 2 months, the guy finally got to the point of why he was calling. He was calling to try and bribe me to change my testimony. He offered me $5,000. $5,000 to say that all of the crap that happened to me wasn't true. I mean, do y'all have any idea how insulted I was? I mean, I would not accept a bribe of any size because, my dignity is worth way more than that. But $5,000, that's like a fucking joke. I mean, all of the pain, torment, the disruption to my life, I mean, you can't fucking put a price on it. It's 20 years later, And what happened to me still affects me deeply. It has, you know, reshaped who I am as a person. It has affected areas of my life extremely. Um, it has set my life back quite a bit. I'm in a good place now, but God, it took me a long time to get here. And it took me a lot of support from my husband and my family and my friends. But yeah, so $5,000 to take back my statement. Obviously, I said no. And I don't remember exactly what happened with him after that. I think the DA said that they tracked him down or something. But the next thing that happened is Dan's sister shows up on my doorstep. I mean, I was at home, and the doorbell rang, and I didn't think anyone knew well, I guess I sort of knew that the private investigator figured that out. But anyways, I go to the door, and it's his sister. I mean, like, I just freeze. I mean, but I end up going outside on the porch, and I end up talking to her for half an hour. She showed up to ask me why I was doing this because, of course, she believes her brother's story of it's all a lie that my mom put me up to telling, which is total bullshit because my mom and I did not have a good relationship until after I came out about this. I would not. I mean, I wouldn't lie for her now, even though we have a good relationship, but I definitely would not have lied for her at that time. I didn't like her. Why would I do anything that she wants? I mean, I've always been a very independent, stubborn person, and, I didn't like my mom because I blamed her for her and my father's divorce, which I took really hard as a child. But, anyways, the sister was like, why are you doing this, blah, 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 blah. And I basically spent a half an hour, like, trying to convince her and comforting her, basically telling her that I know that she didn't want to believe it, but that it happened. I knew she didn't want to believe that her brother would do something like that, but, I told her some details. I told her I wasn't making it up. Essentially I comforted her. I mean, I feel like by the end of our conversation that she had accepted what I said was the truth. I also told her about the private investigator, and she's like, oh, really? Just 5? It was supposed to be $10,000. Well, $10,000 is still a joke, but, at least it was supposed to be, like, double what the dude said. I mean, $10,000 is better than 5. But, yeah, that's still a joke. Anyways, after that, I think things calmed down for a bit after that. I don't recall anything else specific happening until 2007. I was contacted by my lawyer saying that Dan was coming up for parole, and he told me, that if I didn't want Dan to, get out on parole, I should write a letter stating why I didn't think he should get out. So I did, because I didn't want him to get out. I was afraid of retaliation. I mean, he had basically, him and his cronies had harassed and stalked me and my family for years and years and years through this ordeal and after it was supposed to be over. So I wrote a letter, and I received a letter saying that his parole had been denied. But like 2 months later, I received another letter saying that he's being released. And at that point in time, by that point, I was so depleted. I was so wore out from what was a decade of trauma, with the rape, and then the trauma of going through court and all of the harassment and all of that crap. Like, I didn't even look into it. I just sort of resigned myself to it and tried not to think about it. Thankfully, once he got out of jail, I was never harassed again. But, in the meantime, my education was severely disrupted. the last part of high school and my first few years in college were just totally screwed up. This whole that whole 10-year period, and actually maybe it's a little longer than 10. Well, I mean it is longer than 10 years, but I basically sort of call it this 10-year period, and I call it my dark ages because I had all that trauma going on. I had severe anxiety, depression. I mean, some of that's continued off and on over the years. I had night terrors every night. I mean, my night terrors were so bad. I'd lay down, and if someone did not lay down with me, I could not sleep. Because I would lay down, and I would basically start, I would look like I was having a seizure. I would just shake, I'd shake and twitch all the time, unless someone laid down next to me to sort of like calm me down until I fell asleep, and I felt safe. I was constantly jumping up, peeking out the windows to make sure no one was driving by. Every little sound scared the hell out of me. I was afraid to be alone. I was afraid of so many things. I've gotten better, but I still have some issues around some men. I mean, mainly older men with certain body types or whatever. It freaks me out to be too close to other people, which I hate, because I mean, like, I have certain family members that, like, I still, it freaks me out, like, I don't really even feel comfortable hugging them, just because I guess they remind me of my ex-stepfather. There's just a lot of different triggers that I have from all of it. There's so many side effects that I've had from it. I felt like it completely changed me as a person. I have control issues and trust issues, and I've managed to get most of these things under control over the years. I mean, like, I don't have any big freakouts anymore, but it's just because I've learned to manage everything. I mean, God, just so much happened. And I'm just lucky that I have such a good support system and a wonderful husband that, understands. And, yeah, I mean, that's basically, this video is so long. That's basically like an overview or whatever of my experience. And I'm planning on doing more videos talking about more specific issues and more blog entries as well. But since I'm just getting this YouTube channel started, I'm going to sort of start with some overviews and some basics. But if there's anything that any of you would like me to specifically address, any questions you have, feel free to ask. Like I said, it makes me feel better to talk about things. I'm here to both help myself by talking things out, but hopefully to help other people too by sharing my experiences and helping you're not alone. You're not the only person that's felt this or thought that or whatever. So thanks for watching this incredibly long video, and I'll see you next time.